Our next presenter is Richard Scheuerman, talking about the Northwest Cornucopia, the Palouse landscape and advent of agriculture.
Well, hello to everyone. I'm here on afternoon time here, actually on the East Coast because of a family obligation in Florida, but wonderful to see pictures of my homeland and especially wonderful to see my good friends Carrie Jim and Ione, their family, and Carrie's brother Tom Estimo, his daughter Jolene is joining us, have all greatly enriched my life. And it's an honor to have this chance to share in a few minutes a little about these early aspects of settlement in the Palouse Country. This is my brother Don on the right, and I'm on the left there down at our Palouse Colony Farm, which is located in the geographic center of the Palouse Country. And when we look at origins of agriculture, I was asked to share a bit about that. You can see here, seen way back. This is early 1800s with Fort Nisqually there on southern Puget Sound, because the story of the origins of agriculture in the Northwest really go back to the Hudson's Bay Company and the arrival in 1825 of Sir George Simpson, who was the governor of the Hudson's Bay Company, established Fort Vancouver in the 1820s. And soon after that, an extensive network of posts, including Fort Nisqually, which you can see here with heritage grain growing outside the front, and up and down the Willamette Valley. I see we had several guests here on the program also from Oregon, and also up in British Columbia, in Vancouver and Victoria. In fact, the entire staff of Fort Nisqually eventually located to Victoria. But in Eastern Washington, Governor Simpson also directed the establishment of Fort Colville, and very near to where this photograph is taken was Fort Walla, which was actually called Fort Nez Perces originally, and was not located where the city of Walla is, but near the bend of the Columbia River just south of Pasco and the Tri-Cities. So it's near a rural community called Wallula. And several miles up the Walla River is actually what is the first farm located that you see there in the photograph. It was nicknamed Hudson's Bay Farm. Farther upstream, you can see here is our Palouse Colony Farm, and this is actually the grain that descends from the first seed that Governor Simpson brought to the Northwest in the 1820s. It's a soft white variety for what the Palouse is famous for. It was nicknamed Hudson's Bay White Llamas. And so we have revived that through seed stock that was found through a long story. It was quite a detective hunt to track this down. And by the 1850s, this was being raised by Native Americans along the Snake River. Carrie and Ione told us about the indigenous food gathering of the region, and when John Mullen built the first highway through the Palouse Country, he noted that there were 5 Indian farms along the lower Snake River that were raising vegetables and grain. And so it's highly likely that it's that white llamas that was raised. The early farmers came to the Palouse in the 1860s. The first permanent settlers were George Pangburn on Union Flat and his good friend Joe DeLong. This is a picture in the DeLong homestead in the central Palouse, which has the distinction of not only being the oldest farm in the Palouse, but is also continuously been in the same family. Those are heritage apples that were raised there, still blossoming along the middle Palouse. Well, the grain lands, of course, became synonymous production with in the Palouse area, and here you can see a painting of the early steamboat landings along the lower Snake River. As Colette pointed out early in our presentation, the greater Palouse had mixed agriculture, fruits and vegetables and grains of all kinds, but by the late 1800s, with the advent of the railroads and direct access to markets, not only to the east, but also to Asia, soft white wheat became a major export item. And so these landings were established up and down the lower Snake River. Henry Villard, shown here, was the visionary behind the construction of the Northern Pacific Railroad that began in the late 1870s. It was completed by 1882. And that supplanted a lot of the riverboat traffic because that led to direct transportation to Portland, to Seattle, and also to the major cities of the East Coast when the completion of the line was finished in 1882. This is his deputy, General Thomas Tannant, who headed a subsidiary of the Northern Pacific that was called the Oregon Improvement Company. Tannant is a fascinating figure, not really appreciated for a lot of his contributions to the development, not just of the Palouse Country, but to the Pacific Northwest. The Oregon Improvement Company had property all up and down the region in east and west. And so he completed the line that branched off from Connell on the main Northern Pacific line all the way to Moscow and farther east into Idaho. And that really tapped the agricultural bounty of the Palouse. Because of the railroad, ancestors of mine and many others, this is the Rep and Litzenberger family, who were immigrants from Russia. You can probably tell from my last name that we're actually German. And so they were German settlers who had colonized the lower Volga under the time of Catherine the Great. They immigrated to the Northwest in 1881, came to the Palouse in 1882, bearing this very trunk, I might point out. So this is one of the few things that actually came with that first group in 1882. And they settled there, where you saw in the photograph, on the central Palouse River, about halfway between the communities of Endicott and St. John. They were real trailblazers, and eventually several thousand of our people immigrated from that portion of Eastern Europe to the Pacific Northwest. Many of them clustered here at Palouse Colony Farm, where my brother and I, my family, my wife, who's with us online here, Lois is here, and our two daughters and son, so we're glad to have them part of the program here watching. They all know this area. This is just over the hill from where my brother and I were raised, and this is what it looks like today down at Palouse Colony Farm, where, as I've said, we have been raising not only the soft white Hudson's Bay Lammas wheat, but this is a crop of Turkey Red. Turkey Red was the first hard red wheat actually introduced to the entire country. Americans aren't the best in geography, so we sort of misnamed this Turkey Red. It's actually not from Turkey. It's native to the Crimea of South Russia. And that revolutionized the American bread making industry and is the ancestor of virtually all modern bread wheats. So this is what the farm looks like today, where we've worked with many of you here that are joining us on the program today to reestablish, using sustainable farming methods, these heritage grains that are flavorful, nutritious, and doing what we can to also restore the food systems. I was asked to say a word about how the land has been altered in the last 150 years of settlement. You can see a photo here that we found with some of the early residents of the colony farm. You can see trees all the way up and down the river. And if today you look at this portion, where working in a project to replant trees along the river because most of the trees were taken out by farmers along Union Flat, Palouse River, Rebel Flat, and others for their crops. This is a soft red variety nicknamed red Walla Walla. It's actually a grain from southern England that was used for both brewing purposes and also for milling for flatbreads. You know, the Palouse geography is pretty wild in a sense, with the steep hills and not really given to the organized way of the Northwest Ordinance to create a grid system of land ownership. And so erosion has become a problem because of the way the fields were laid out. We're working with good people like you to try to, again, restore the regenerative approaches to agriculture for purposes like brewing, as you saw there with the grain shed purple Egyptian brew. And this is Scots Bear, which is one of the early barleys that was brought to this region. So with good teamwork here, we've trying to do what we can again to reestablish these heritage varieties that are flavorful and nutritious, and once again trying to do our little part of contributing to the regional food shed. If you'd like more information in terms of dates and specific varieties of fruits, vegetables, grains, I've tried to document those to the extent that I can. Several publications, including this one, Harvest Heritage from WSU Press. But very grateful to our friends at the University of Idaho and the entire team there for letting us share. So thanks again for the opportunity to be part of your good work.
Thank you so much. It's a great presentation. I always learn so much when you tell these stories, Dick, so thank you.
You bet. Thank you.